My name is Danielle, and this is Trying Matters. If you're looking for a no BS type podcast, this is it. I'm here to help make life fun and interesting and learn right alongside you how to be brave enough to go against the grain. Here, we'll be talking about real challenges and fears that are holding us women back from living our lives to the fullest. So let's shake things up a bit and actually start trying. All right, guys. Hello, and welcome back to Trying Matters. Today, we are talking about friendSHIFTS. SHIFTS, as in like we shifted. Not, I don't know what else you could have maybe thought that I said, but I feel like shifts, when you add the S in there, it just gets a little crazy. So I'll spell it out for you. So, like a friendship, but a friend shift. Now, this is something that I have been wanting to talk about probably since the concept of the podcast came about, but I am going to be straight up with you guys. I have been hesitant to talk about it because I did not want any one of my friends to listen to this and think that I am specifically talking about them. So, I am going to just put this disclaimer out there because, yes, y'all know that if you've listened to this podcast before, when I talk about things on here, it's usually something that I'm going through. But this is kind of a cross between things that I am currently going through, things that I have experienced in the past, things that other people have brought to me that they are currently experiencing. So this is I guess a compilation of a lot of different experiences all into one, and hopefully I can, tie it all up in a good bow for you guys to make it make sense. So as women, I feel like we do this a lot. We have these friendships, and sometimes things just kind of change. And the first time I heard this concept of a friend shift was when I was in high school. Our principal, when I was in high school, I went to an all girls Catholic school. If you guys have not heard me say that before, I'm from New Orleans, and that's just what we do around here. So, our principal was a nun, and she would give these just inspiring talks, or she would just come and have some like chats with us from time to time at our assemblies. And one of the things that she had mentioned a few times, because I'm sure, as you can imagine, being in an all girls school, there are no boys to kind of buffer out the issues that us girls have. It is just straight up the cattiness, the drama that you experience. Plus, it's high school, so it's just like, you know, it enlarged. What was the word? Like exponentially more, just drastic. Okay. So she had a conversation with us one time, and she was like, okay, so, we're all going through a lot of transition periods throughout high school. You start as like a 13-year-old, because we started in 8th grade over there. Um, and then you end as a 18-year-old. There's a lot that changes in that time span as a teenager. And, you know, there were these lunch groups that we all had in high school. And if you were not, if you were having a little change of heart with who you wanted to be sitting with, it was a major deal. Like, to change lunch groups was a huge deal. And that was one of the main things that she was referring to with the friend shift. So that's where that idea kind of came from, and her wisdom, she kind of coined that term in my mind, but I've kind of referenced back to it throughout my entire life, because there were plenty of shifts that I experienced through my middle school ages to my high school ages, then in college, and now as an adult even. I'm constantly experiencing shifts because, and this is another concept that I may have mentioned already, may have introduced it if not. Um, a lot of people refer to life as having seasons. I'm in a season of hustle, or I'm in a season of growth, or I'm in my mom era. Like that's all like your seasons of life. And it's because we change, just like the seasons. We may not have that cyclical pattern of, winter, spring, summer, fall, but we have these seasons in life where we're one way for a little bit of time, and then something happens and we change and we evolve. And the people that are along for the ride also change. So that's the underlying of what we're getting into. So that's to introduce kind of a friend shift, the concept. Um, and the thing is we all have the seasons, including the people in our lives. So a lot of times this looks like we're growing apart. We haven't seen each other in so long, or, oh my gosh, we need to catch up. And there may not necessarily be a follow through. Or, you gradually kind of decrease the amount that you're having conversations with this person, or just seeing them in person. Um, or like sometimes you just have that feeling like something's off, something's different. I don't know what it is, but oh, she's being weird, or like I feel weird and we're just not syncing up anymore. And it can be from things like you're just growing apart. It can be from things like being in a different phase in life, having different goals and interests than from when you first became friends, because let's be real, the goals and interests that you had when you were 13 are not going to be the same goals and interests that you have as a 28-year-old. It's going to be different. And sometimes the people that you had with you at age 13 have different goals at age 28 than you do at age 28. Um, Growing apart because you're at different phases in life. I have a lot of friends that are moms right now. I'm not a mom. And sometimes that can be difficult to navigate. And there are people that I know that, she became a mom and we just kind of fizzled out. Or she got married and I was single and we just kind of fizzled out. I know y'all have had to have either experienced or heard these things before. Snap if you've heard it, or you can relate. And a lot of times there's no real explanation. There's no like statement or intention behind it. There's no big conversation around the shift. It just kind of happens sometimes. And it can be really difficult to talk about it, and a lot of times we start creating meaning around this shift that we have. Like we start to think, oh, did I do something wrong? Like, why is she being weird? Like, why aren't we talking as much? Or, you know, there we make this story, which I talk about a lot. Because we're meaning creating machines, is what somebody, another podcaster had mentioned, and I've also seen it in a lot of like personal development books and things. We create meaning. We're always trying to solve problems. It's what we do. It's our nature, especially as women. I mean, I've done this so many times, and my husband actually called me. He said, "Oh, you're my little overanalyzer," and I was like, "Stop it! Don't don't call me that. I know I do it, but it's because men don't analyze like anything. Everything's just so black and white with them." There's a book called Men Are Waffles and Women Are Spaghetti. And the first time I heard that, I was like, I don't want to be spaghetti. I want to be a damn waffle because I like waffles better. But what they meant by it, like the whole concept behind it is men are more like, I keep this thought in this box, and they compartmentalize things, and they're very black and white and very little gray area. And then you talk to a woman and it's just this mess of spaghetti. Like it's just we create this meaning from like this one event entangled into this, entangled into that. And that's where like these stories start to come in, and we're making one thing that happened or didn't happen mean, oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, she doesn't like me anymore, or oh, I did something wrong and she doesn't want to talk to me about it, so I'm writing her off. Whatever it may be, we create a story, we make a meaning, and sometimes we're just asking the wrong question, or we're not asking questions to that person. So, one thing that I am always going to be an advocate for, and if you guys have listened to this podcast, you've probably picked up on it. honesty and truth. That is my biggest recommendation to anyone in any regard of life. If you are not being honest with yourself, we need to start there. If you are not being honest with the people that you are in relationships with, whether that be romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships, honesty is the key. And communication also goes hand in hand with that honesty, because if we're the type of people that don't want to talk about our problems, they're not going to get resolved. If we're the kind of people that want to, complain about it to somebody, but then never take action on how to repair it, we're not going to get anywhere with that. Or if we just agree and nod our heads yes when we're in the middle of a conflict because we don't like conflict, that's not going to get us anywhere either. Being honest with the person that you're feeling this change, this shift with, is 10 out of 10. Hold up, it's scary as hell. Don't get me wrong. It is absolutely terrifying to get the guts to say, this is what I'm starting to feel. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm experiencing. Are you feeling that way too? Like, is it just me? Or are we kind of like not talking as much? And like, I feel weird. What's weird? Like, something's not right. And if we're having that conversation, it opens up the door to that person to maybe talk about why, or maybe they didn't even realize. So, being honest, 100%. If this person is truly your friend, they should be understanding, right? Like, we have to give them the opportunity to participate in that. And I kind of mentioned this in last week's episode on forgiveness. If we only focus on our own experiences and our own perspective, it's not fair to that other person. And then we could be, sabotaging this entire relationship because we're only self-focused. We're not involving that other person. In a relationship requires more than one person, and it requires that communication, that honesty, if we really want it to flourish and grow. So they should understand. And if there was a conflict, like, you may be thinking that there is a conflict, and then you bring it up to this person and they're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm so sorry. You're right. We haven't talked. We haven't seen each other. Life has been crazy. I just started a new job, and mastering the new schedule has been a lot. Or I just got into a new relationship, a new romantic relationship, and I'm trying to navigate that because, it's brand new and I want to spend time with this person, but I'm so sorry. I've been neglecting you as a friend. Or maybe the person has just been, I don't know, like, maybe they're going through a lot of stuff with their family or like medically, and they're not ready to talk about it or something. If you go to them and you say like, "Hey, I'm seeing this," like, it may not be what the story that you've told yourself. It may not be, "Oh, she's mad at me." It may just be, "Oh, I didn't even realize because I've been so caught up in all of these other things." Um so give them the opportunity to do that. And then if there was some kind of conflict and, the person was pulling away, which I always encourage, if you're having a conflict, take your time, yes. But I'm going to encourage everyone that has the fear of conflict to just be open to speaking to somebody, speaking to that person about it, because on the opposite side, so the perspective that we're giving from right here is, okay, something's weird, I need to talk to this person. And then the other person maybe had an issue but didn't want to talk about it. I encourage both people to really communicate, because if you had an issue with somebody and you want to work on that relationship, you want it to improve, you want to address that with that person, because you want to give them the same courtesy that they would give you, hopefully. Um, so if somebody did something and you're not happy with it, like, talk to them about it, because it could be solved and it could come to a beautiful resolution. And we don't know unless we try, because trying matters. There's that plug. But in this case, I'm saying, like, if there was a conflict and you are the person that's like, I think something's wrong, I think I did something to offend them, bring it up to them again. And that's in that conversation, like, something's not right. Like, did I do something to upset you? This is what I was thinking. And if so, like, I'm sorry. Like, and then you can have that conversation, that flow. And And both parties really need to be honest. And it's scary to be honest because we're afraid to lose people sometimes. But the honesty, if you present it in a way that the person can be receptive to it, it's valued, because who really wants somebody in their life that's just going to be agreeable all the time and say yes? Like, that's not a good relationship. And I remember being very, very young, a, maybe like before I was even a teenager, and hearing like, oh, yeah, this so and so are dating and they never fight. And I remember it might have been my mom or maybe somebody else who was like, if you're not fighting, somebody's not being honest. And that's a problem, because that's going to lead to a much larger conflict down the road. So I'm not saying fighting is a good thing, but fighting is healthy. Or not fighting like boom boom, but like having a conflict is healthy, because there are no two people who are always going to see eye to eye on everything. It doesn't happen like that. We all have different experiences that we bring to the table and different perspectives that we bring to the table. So, yes, it's scary to be honest, and yes, it's scary to enter into that conflict and go and figure out a conflict resolution, but at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind, if that relationship is something that's really important to you, it's worth it. Though it is scary, the outcome is way more, it's worth the risk. The, what is that? Risk versus the benefit. I don't I don't remember what the wording is, but like, yes, it's scary, but it's so worth it to have the conversation, to be honest, to get that resolution. And the resolution may not come right away, especially if there is like a healing point that needs to happen. That's where we go back and listen to episode 8 for on forgiveness. But it is worth it, though it is scary. So um and and sometimes, if there was, this actually leads me into this next part. If there is something that we may have had a conflict that we can't resolve in that immediate conversation, or I've approached this person and nothing's changed, because that does happen sometimes. Like, in a shift, it may not go back to what we had it once as before. So what I mean is, you can't expect, because a relationship involves, two people, conversation, honesty, all of that, communication. It's done. Sometimes this takes a little bit more work. Relationships in general take work. So if you have this conversation with the person and you're honest, they hear you out, you hear them out, we address whatever the conflict was, if there was a conflict, or we just address we acknowledge each other's changes and the different seasons that we're in, and nothing changes. Well, if you only had that conversation once, would you want somebody to just give you one shot at trying to improve on whatever it is that you need to improve on? Likely you would want more than one try. So, try again. And, if you try again and nothing happens again, give it at least one more shot. 3 strikes, you're out. Let's go with that. Give them at least 3 tries to try and work on that relationship, because it is a two-way street, and it is exhausting if you are the one that's carrying a relationship and fighting for it and the other person's not there. I know in romantic relationships, again, if you listen to this in your car, snaps, give me some hell yes. If you have been in a romantic relationship and you are fighting for it and it is going nowhere, and at some point you just got to end it. You got to end it. But that's the difference between a romantic relationship and a friendship. Is a lot of times you get that closure in a relationship because it's like, we are broken up. The end of the relationship is now. In a friend shift, you don't get that closure. It's not like, hey, by the way, I don't want to be your friend anymore. We're not going to be friends anymore. It's just not working out. See you later. I have actually, my little sisters have experienced that. That was high school drama. I'm talking about, like, in this regard, in a shift, you don't get that closure like you do in like the ending of a like romantic relationship. Um and that's sometimes very uneasy, and especially after you've tried, okay, I've tried multiple times, this person does not seem like they are giving their effort. At that point, and if they've given you their valiant effort and it's still not going anywhere, maybe we just need to close that chapter. Which again, here we are. Easier said than done. I'm not saying I got that part figured out because I definitely don't. But this is the part that's hard. This is the pain, the overanalysis, the sadness, the anger, because it's like, I have fought, I have tried, and this person is not trying. If you truly have, because you got to be real with yourself. If you say, oh yeah, I like talked to her once or like kind of mentioned it, but you weren't straightforward and you weren't honest. No, girl. Don't give yourself credit for that. Because if you truly care about that person, you care about that relationship, you have to be honest. You have to, grow a pair and go for it and talk to them. You can't just rule somebody out if you haven't given them the time. That's so unfair, and you wouldn't want that done to you. So, anyway, the sadness, the anger, all of that sets in. If you've really given it a try and you've given that person the opportunity to try and they just haven't, this is again where we start doing the whole story, meaning making, all that stuff. And this is where I do encourage you to do a little bit of analysis here. And I've recently done this too. And it's like, okay, I mean, I analyze almost everything. I like to be very self-aware, sometimes to a fault. I consider it a strength, but also with every strength, there is kind of a weakness or a weak point of it. Why were you fighting for that relationship? Truly. Were you fighting for that relationship because you valued that friendship and that person? Or were you fighting for it because you still feel like there is value that it can add to your present self and your future self? Or were you fighting for that friendship because you felt some sort of rejection from that person? Or were you fighting for that friendship because you felt left out of something that you once were a part of and you're no longer a part of it? Or that's no longer part of your life, how that person is, living their life, or that aspect that you had that brought you guys together is no longer there. Like, for example, when I went to college, I had a really close couple of friends that I had danced with, and that was our thing. We all became really close knit. And when we all went to college and we weren't seeing each other all the time, we weren't dancing together all the time, we didn't have that thing to hold us together, physically bring us together and be in the same place. And then we also didn't have that commonality anymore, and we just eventually shifted apart. There was never any hard feelings. None of us ever did anything wrong to each other or to hurt each other, but that's no longer a part of our life. That's no longer a part of who we are to that extent that it once was. That was a past version of ourselves and a past interest and commonality, and now it's no longer. And sometimes the grief of the past, whether it be the relationship or that season of life or just that thing that you were doing, sometimes that makes us want to hold on to a person. And it's not necessarily that you want that person, it's that you want that hobby that you used to do together with that person. If that's the case, then go start doing that again. If that was something that brought joy to your life, it wasn't that person, it was that hobby. Or it was that past part of your life that there was something in the past, like the community community aspect and the socialization. Find that community and that socialization at this point in your life. And I know that's easier said than done, but really think about it. You're fighting for a relationship that you're not necessarily fighting for that person. You're fighting for something that may be connected to that friendship. So that's where I want you to kind of analyze. And the fear of rejection, that's another one that I feel like a lot of us experience when we're going through this kind of shift in a friendship. So, for example, I am now newly married, and like I said, I have a lot of friends that are having kids, have had kids. And before I was married, I didn't understand why like some people weren't hanging out with me and my single friends as much. I'm like, you're married now and like we don't ever see you. What's up with that? Or I have friends that have kids and I don't understand what it's like to be a mom because I've never been a mom. So it's hard for me to, like, oh, I don't get to see you as much in the context that I would like to see you. Now we have to work around, the schedule that you have with your kids, and like your kids take higher priority over me as they should. um but sometimes that's the kind of stuff that can like make you grow apart. But um that doesn't mean that it's a rejection there. And if we are fearing a rejection, does that still mean that you want that person as a friend? What are we really looking at? Why were we holding on to that relationship? So let me bring that back in. I kind of got off topic, but what's the reason why you're really fighting for that relationship, and is it worth it? If it's not, you've given it your valiant effort. You've communicated with that person. That person has tried or hasn't tried in this case. And you're holding on to something of the past. You're holding on to a prior version of yourself that you wish you had. We're stuck there. How do we move past it? We know we have to figure out why we're holding on to it, which is, what we just talked about. But then instead of focusing on what we lost, or what is no longer our reality, because a lot of times I feel like that's really tied to the pain that we feel in a shift in a friendship, that in the rejection piece, or like our own insecurities like eating at us, is we're focusing on what the past was. We have to close that chapter, like I said earlier, and we need to move on to the next chapter. You've tried, and it's not what it used to be, because you're not at the same phase that you were when that person was at that level of closeness with you and you with them. It's okay to close that chapter, because I can promise you there are people in your life at this moment that care about you and that want you to have a great relationship with them more than that person who you are no longer in that season of life with, that you were super close with before. Why put all of your effort into trying to hold on to something that is no longer there, when you have people in front of you that want to give you all the love and support and want to be that person for this season of life? We need to be looking for the people that are here in this moment and not focus on the past. Yes, it hurts. We have to acknowledge that it hurts. But I remember, every little girl wants to fit in at some point in their lives, or every woman wants to fit in at some point in their life. And when we feel like we're accepted and no longer on the outskirts, we get super excited, but we may have made a connection with somebody else who was also on the outskirts, and then we get included. It's the whole Mean Girls concept all over again. Um, I'm referencing it again, but when we get into that, where we like hold on and claw tooth and nail and white knuckle it and hope that we can stay in with that moment and that experience and that level of like outside validation that we're getting. And then we're putting to the wayside that friendship that we may have started before we got to that status or that group, or that friendship that we were trying so hard to get. And we forget that there are these people who have been there through the good, the bad, the ugly, who are truly supportive and loving and want that deep relationship with you. And that's the ones that we need to focus on. You learn that at an early age. We need to carry that into our adulthood as women. We need to be looking for the people who are experiencing things that we are experiencing, because we need their support, and we need to support them. We need the women that are having the same goals and values as us, because at this point in life, if you're an adult woman, like, why are we playing games and being, surface value, like face value, surface level relationships? Yes, we do have those, but you need those deeper connections. You need those deeper relationships, because it's what keeps us going when times get hard and when we experience things like this, So focusing on those relationships that you do have. And if you don't have them, looking for them. Look for those deep relationships. There's somebody out there who's trying to connect with you or who wants to connect with you. And if you constantly focus on what was the past, you will never form that relationship with that person who either needs you or you need them. And you could get a relationship like what you had with that other person that no longer is at that same level of importance and you've shifted from. You could have that or better with this person. So why waste more time focusing on the past? That chapter is closed. We got to close that book, girl. Close that chapter, close that book, and move on to somebody who wants to support you, who wants to be there for you. And we can't harp on it. We got to build that new relationship and that good foundation, and get that strong support from another person who wants to be that for you and who you want to be that for as well. Okay. I'm coming to a close here, slowly but surely. When we change, or when we're looking at a change, or we often feel an ending of a relationship, we don't always get the explanation and closure like we talked about earlier. And a lot of times, because we don't get that closure, it keeps us stuck in the past and it doesn't allow us to move forward. But that's what we're trying to do. And ultimately, that person, like I said, was important to you at that season of your life, at that point in your life. They were very significant in making you who you are today. And that is very important to acknowledge and realize. But if they are no longer that person, it does not mean that they hate you. It does not mean that they purposefully left you out or they meant for that relationship to fail. And it does not equate to rejection. It does not do any of that unless you make it mean that. That is super important, because we are always making meaning out of things. What do you want that to mean? Do you want it to mean that this girl, is mad at you and hates you for this and we stay stuck in that? Or do you want the change and the shift in that friendship to mean, wow, that person was great for that time, and now I'm going to move forward and find someone who's good for this time, this season in my life, or the future seasons of my life? We change, we grow, we evolve, as do they. So, bringing it all in, there's great friendships out there. There are shifts in friendships that we've had in the past. That's okay. It's a part of life. When we flip that script into that was a great friendship, I'm confusing the shift and the shift all together. No, the shift, I don't know. The ship is shifting. I don't know sailor terms. I'm not even going to pretend. Ships and sailors. Woo! We had a shift, but we can find another great friendship in our lives, and we can be grateful for that friendship that we once had in that season when we needed it. So, it's okay to have a shift in your friendship. Be careful with what you analyze and what you make it to create meaning of. And happy friendships, Like, let's change that narrative around being women that are friends to not be cut and dry of this friendship ended, they hate me, this is bad, rejection, blah 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 blah. No, we want to say thank you, next. Ariana Grande. But yeah, truly, it's okay to let it go. It's okay to be thankful for it. Be thankful for that season. We don't want to stay in the past. We want to move forward onto beautiful friendships that we need at this current moment in our lives. So that is a friend shift. I hope you have enjoyed it. And I hope you got some meaning from it. If you are having any questions about how to navigate friendships, I've had a lot of friend shifts throughout my life, and I like to consider myself a slight expert on it. And if you need a chit chat, let me know. Hit me up if you have my number, or hit me up on social media and we can talk about it. Okay, that is it. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are listening, whenever you are listening. And I will talk to y'all guys, yous guys, y'all, whatever you want to call yourself, next time. Ah! It's making balloons! How did I do that? I love it. Okay, bye for real. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you got a little inspiration to start taking steps towards whatever it is you've been wanting to try. If you love this episode, share it on socials and tag me. I'd love to hear how it helped you. And of course, we got to get the word out to the other women who are needing that little extra push like you and I do. Can't wait to talk to you soon.